Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. That exhale would for Ryan Walters and Purdue, I think, because they pulled one out of the fire today, a 35-31 victory. I had to look at that number again as the Boilermakers beat Indiana in the bucket game and win the Old Oaken bucket in heart-wrenching or heart-stopping style, I should say. I want to thank the Union Club Hotel, 811 Bistro, Boiler Up Bar. There might be some things going on there tonight, I would think, after the Purdue win. Tom Dienhart, I'll start with you. I guess just some reaction. Coach Ryan Walters was pretty stoic on radio with Tim Newton, but hard to minimize. I know these are 2, 3, and 8 teams, and we are not going to debate whether momentum goes into the offseason. We're fair on that one too. No debate, but it's got to feel good for Ryan and staff, for Ryan Walters and staff to get the job done. And did you see any of that in postgame in terms of that feeling?
Yeah, he was a little muted, Alan. Wasn't overly joyous, I think he understands the situation, right? I mean, 4-8's great, but I think we all know he probably wanted more. And as you look back at the season, you would have, should have, could yourself to death on some of those games. But here we are, right? As you said, better to end the year with a victory, obviously, than a loss, especially against your rival. You get to keep the bucket. And again, he had a comment. I asked him a question, and he had a comment about how this is just the beginning. He hopes this is the last time he's home for the holidays while he's the Purdue football coach. So he knows he has a lot of work to do, guys. He talked about hitting the recruiting trail, of course. First of all, the portal opens December 4th. That's priority number one. I expect next week could be busy with guys jumping in, and signing day is December 20th. And guys, she also mentioned he's going to be busy fundraising. So there you go.
Okay.
Fundraising.
Put it on the list.
NIL initiatives and whatnot. So, yeah, again, I think he's appreciative of again winning this game, but he wasn't overly joyous about it. He did cite some progress. He saw some progress from the defense, some progress from the offense along the way as well. And I think he understands that most importantly, this is just a first step. It's nice to exhale, like you said, Alan. But again, he's under no delusions of what he's up against here. He knows he has hard work to do.
Mike Hudson Card was I don't want to overstate it, but he was pretty good in the second half. Made a couple made the play of the, maybe it might have been the play of the year. I don't know, but maybe overstated. But the one when he escaped the sack and made that pass down toward the north end zone that really put Purdue in a position to win this football game. But just talk about his play and what that meant as Purdue ended the season. Yes, with a 4-8 record, but with an important win over Indiana.
I thought his legs were the difference all day.
Yeah.
And he was elusive. I think he frustrated IU's defense. Now, a lot of things can be true in this situation. Hudson had a great game. He was able to scramble out of trouble, but IU's tackling was horrendous. And I knowing IU's football history, I think that's probably been a theme all season. So they've had a lot of problems, but you can't deny what he did with his legs, either on design runs or getting out of trouble, getting outside the pocket, keeping plays alive, even on his touchdown run late in the game. It looked a little designed, but still he was able to weave his way through traffic and get in the end zone. And, he made some big time throws, some key throws, and good for him playing with a rib injury and showing a lot of toughness and taking some hits. There was one there in the fourth quarter I didn't know if he'd get up from, but he did.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's his value as the quarterback, I think, has been shown in the 2 games he's played here. In the last 3, he didn't play against Northwestern. So you look what he did against Minnesota, you look what he did against IU. I mean, he has to feel good going into the offseason about what the offense accomplished, what he accomplished. And that does give them something to build on as you go into the next few months and go into spring ball. But it's clear that they need more talent around him. He needs to elevate his play in certain situations, but good game for him and a way to kind of move, try to move forward from this season.
One of the stats I thought maybe the stat of the game is Indiana gets 13 tackles for loss, Tom, only one sack on card. I mean, that's an interesting deal. Maybe it was, and like you're right, Mike, some spotty tackling or not wrapping up card when they had chances to do that. Certainly was part of that. But, a little bit of resiliency there that to be able to get the job done. Tyrone Tracy, who did not have a big day, but had a couple big runs at the right times. Devin Mockabee, I thought also the fourth down choice to when Purdue was kind of dead in the water again, and they go for it and not only go for it, but really have one of the few plays this year where Purdue really had somebody on their heels on the touchdown pass to Mockabee was extremely important. Tom, put that all in perspective from your perspective.
Yeah, I asked Hudson about that play, Alan. They were losing 28-18 early in the fourth quarter, and the game was obviously very much in peril there. And fourth and 2 or whatever.
Yeah, they just had a loss right in the play before to make it 4th and 2, and you thought, oh my, here we go again. But go ahead.
Yeah, Mike and I were talking about that. I think we looked at each other in those situations, sort of kiddingly knowing Purdue struggles, right? And Hudson said they had that play obviously for a while. They're waiting for the right time to use it, and they executed it well. IU was in a defense. They thought it would work, and boy, wide open. Devin Mockabee makes his very first touchdown catch of his career, going 38 yards to cut that lead to 28-25. And you could call that the play of the game if you want, but for me, that last drive for Purdue, the 44-yard pass to Deion Burks, where he laid out and caught it, then Card followed up with a 10-yard draw for pay dirt. But I guess I like the game-sealing tackle by Nick Scorton, right?
Yeah.
As IU's driving down the field there, you got a feeling they're going to be thrown in the end zone when this clock's ticking down, and they're inching their way down toward that south end zone. But they came up against a 4th and short as well, and they were going to let Sorsby try to do his thing, and that's where Scorton snuffed it out, extinguished the drive, turned the ball back over to Purdue. Game over. You talk about big-time players making big-time plays. That's what it is exactly about. That's what a star does. That's exactly what Nick Scorton is. I think we all can agree with that. The Big Ten's leader in sacks. So that was big. Again, Scorton, Mockabee, Card. Without a doubt, this was Card's best game, I think, right? He only threw for 300 yards one time this year. I think it was against Syracuse. But Mike talked about the Minnesota game. Now today, I think what he was dealing with rib-wise, Brian Walters said Monday or Tuesday, still wasn't good, but he wanted to make a go of it as long as he could throw the ball. And they went with Hudson Card, and kind of shows you his toughness too, right? He's got a very understated personality. He's almost quiet, but I don't think there's any doubt that he's a tough guy, and he does have a skill set that they can continue to work with, no doubt.
How close, Mike Carmin? I don't know. At least what I was watching, I said Scorton's offsides. I said they're going to definitely throw. It looked like he timed that. He must have timed it perfectly because they didn't throw a flag. I didn't see whether Tom Allen and company were screaming and yelling on the other sidelines, but he absolutely anticipated that. And Tom Dienhart, you're right. He just made the play. But talk about that. And Thieneman making plays. Again, this is not the 85 Bears. I get that. I had to relate to you there, Mike, on your Bears, but there were better days for the Bears. But there were some things there that you saw some big plays, and those three have made them really all year for Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, either Scorton or Kadron Jenkins need to be first team All Big Ten based on the seasons that they have. I mean, for Purdue to get two guys on that would be probably highly unlikely, but at least one of those guys needs to be first team All Big Ten. When you look at the seasons that they've had and you look at what Scorton did today, they've had those kind of years, but Purdue will probably get penalized in some degree because of when you start looking at numbers and how many points they've given up and yards and stuff like that. But those two guys had all Big Ten first team type seasons, and it'd be a shame if one of them doesn't get recognized. But Dylan Thieneman is on his way to becoming the all-time interception leader in program history, assuming he's here 4 years. I think Cam Allen is probably shaking a little bit because he's tied for second, and he probably won't be in that position very long. Thieneman keeps doing what he's doing. So individual plays by the defense were big today. Individual plays by the offense, obviously were huge. And Now it's just a matter of finding some more pieces to go with both units. They got to clean up a lot of things on special teams. I'm not sure anybody in the field could catch Jalen Lucas on that kickoff return, but there's areas in special teams that really need attention. Number one, finding consistent kicking, even though, you could, Ben Freehill really bounced back after that early miss and got Purdue got Purdue 9 important points as you went through the game. But they need more consistency out of the kicking game. They need more consistency out of special teams. I mean, there's a lot of areas they've got to touch on in the offseason, whether it's done through recruiting or done through the transfer portal to clean these things up. They need more pieces, especially with the schedule that they're going to have to face next year and beyond. It's a bit of an uphill climb for this program and others in the Big Ten of who they have to play every year. And, you're going to have to upgrade your talent and level of play to really compete in the Big Ten, because today the Big Ten West came to an end. It's RAP for the Big Ten West, and there's no mechanism now available for a way to win a division. You got to win the whole thing to get it done.
I hate to think that the three of us have probably been well over 100 bucket games in one number. I know that means we're all old between the three of us if we add them all together. But there's always a guy or two, it seems like, for Purdue and others that come out of nowhere. And I've spent this entire year trying to learn Purdue's roster. Now I'm a little slow on the uptake just because of all the new names, but George Burhan, he was huge. 5 catches, 74 yards, and the run after catch. But he had 46 out of his 74 yards run after catch. Yeah. But you have guys, Drew Bibber Drew's played more. This was, I think, Tom Burhan's first snaps of the year. Am I right? But I know Bibber had played earlier, but his first catch of the year, and it was a big one also. But there have been bucket heroes over the years of guys that just kind of come out of nowhere to get the job done. But this was another case of it for Purdue and those guys. I know that a lot of that was in the first half, but it wasn't like things were going well for Purdue offensively in the first half. They needed everything they could possibly, they being Purdue, to muster.
He looks like a promising guy, fellas.
Yeah, he sure does.
A true freshman. Mike asked me about him during the game, too, if he was still eligible to redshirt. I went to Pro Football Focus, and he had already played in 5 games this year.
On special teams.
I knew he'd seen some snaps. I just wasn't sure how many he had played in.
Okay.
I think, like Jordan Jones said, too, Ryan Walters has said before, he's not interested in preserving guys' red shirts anyway. So if you can play more, in the transfer portal era too. Now, guys, why sit on a guy if you think he can help you out? It's a whole different mindset, I think, now for these coaches. But he's a good-looking athlete if you ever stood next to him. Tall and lean, a legit 6'5".
Got that long hair too, Tom.
Long glorious hair, man.
Only Carm's got good hair in this group, so there you go.
Carm's got he's got the coif, he's got the stash.
I know. I'm jealous. Go ahead.
I had George Barron here in 1985. It was glorious too, but he can run. He was a great track athlete, as hurdler, and we finally saw him used as a pass catcher. He got targeted, I should say. And Ryan Walters said after the game, he not only played tight end, they also used him at receiver today. And we all know Purdue was pretty compromised at receiver. TJ Sheffield going to the portal, right? And then, of course, the injuries, right? Mershawn Rice is hurt. Abdur Rahman Yassin hasn't played in months. And they've been real thin at that core all year. And Andrew Sawinski was out today. So, yeah, to have a guy like that emerge will really help. And also to Garrett Miller, speaking of tight ends.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he goes down. These other kids step up. You feel bad for Garrett Miller, right? We didn't ask about Garrett in the postgame. We probably should have, but you hope for the best. But we all know what he's gone through to get back from that injury in training camp way back in August of 2022.
All right, Mike, you had something to say, though. Garrett Miller's injury was not pretty.
Well, I was going to mention Garrett Miller because it is, George probably doesn't get on the field if Garrett Miller doesn't get hurt. But as Tom mentioned, I mean, this has been a long road for Garrett Miller since he injured his knee at the beginning of training camp in 2022. And to make it through the end of the season to the last game and injure whatever he injured, we don't know exactly what his injury is, but anytime you got to get carted off, it's not good news. Here's a guy, Tom and I talked during the game that when he was paired with Payne Durham a couple years ago, Purdue had probably one of the best 1-2 tight end combinations in the league. That's no disrespect to what Iowa produces every year, but from Purdue's standpoint, those two guys, they played off each other. Garrett Miller is extremely athletic for his size, and there just seemed to be a lot of promise there for him to potentially take over that spot. And he's just been riddled with injuries, and hopefully he can get back and do it again. But it's probably going to be a long road for him. But I just make sure that we kind of mention him as a guy that Purdue would like to have back and potentially play a big role next year.
Yeah, he did go through senior day as well, and his injury was not pretty. If you watch the replay, and you don't want to watch it, it was not fun to look at. And it does, we're not doctors on this show, but it looked like it's going to be a long road there, getting that fixed. Looking maybe a fracture of sorts, but hopefully it will be, because hopefully it will be something he can deal with in the near term. All right, Tom, as you look ahead now. Again, this 4-8 maybe is on the very low end of the spectrum. We talked about numbers of wins this year, and we're thinking 4 through 7, but 4 is the low number there. Yeah. And yet the Big Ten, we know now the Big Ten's already changed, because Jonathan Smith apparently coming from Oregon State to Michigan State. So Purdue will face a new coach when it goes to Corvallis next year in week number 3, I believe it is. You have Notre Dame on the schedule. We're not wishing the summer away. You got open with Indiana State as things start, but it's going to be a new era of Big Ten football, and one that Ryan Walters and company are going to have to embrace to get themselves to where you can win 6 or 7 games just based on that schedule.
Yeah, you've already fast forward past the basketball season, buddy.
I know. Well, we can't talk about that. It's we'll leave that up to Newbert. He's been doing such a good job with that.
Purdue's will be ranked number 1, and they don't play Rutgers till late January.
There you go. You got the right one there.
Just taking the lid off hoops. But yeah, Alan, you're right. Indiana State's the opener next year. Notre Dame follows at home, followed by the trip to Corvallis to face an always plucky Oregon State team. Yeah, you're right. It's a brand new brave world. We've talked about that a lot, how this Big Ten is now an 18-team conference, almost it's a mega conference upon itself, right? 1 through 18, no divisions. The top 2 teams will play in the Big Ten championship game moving forward. How they decide those teams, if there's tiebreakers, I'm not sure whether they'll figure that out at some point. But again, Purdue State faces obviously a challenge to ever try to get back up to where they were at last year to play in the championship game. Oregon comes to West Lafayette next year. That's their Pac or former Pac-12 opponent. And this is going to be a challenge. Notre Dame's back on the schedule. We talked about that for the next 4 years. Not good timing. We talked about that in the press box too. Had Purdue known this 18-team conference was coming, I doubt they would have scheduled the series with Notre Dame, right? You would have rather have gotten East Timbuktu State in here. Some blood donor you could have given a check to get beat up. But here they are. They stacked Notre Dame on top of all these other Big Ten teams. So, and it's not going to get any easier. And it's always a challenge at Purdue, right? It seems like maybe this new era may be even more challenging than before. But we'll see how it all unfolds. It's going to be a fun soap opera to watch continue to develop. And I'm just really eager to see how this roster gets rebuilt and constructed by Ryan Walters and company moving forward.
Yeah, Mike, you look at one line, we'll go to put a wrap on this here relatively soon, but 59,000 people here today. And it's funny, I took a picture 20 minutes before the game, and there probably weren't 12,000 in the facility. It was a cold day, but the fact the fans showed up, I thought was another very important sidebar to this year. I know the students were better than I anticipated. Of course, they're on break. Not everybody came back, but a crowd of over 59,000 today. You can't complain. It certainly is a good sign, I think, for Purdue football. The fact that in your 6 home games this year, or was it 7, that you had really good crowds for all of them. And the Minnesota and Indiana games were the ones that may have impressed me the most. Just the fact that fans showed up, and yeah, there were a lot of IU fans here today, but not a huge surprise, but still a great crowd, and that has to bode well, at least at the seems to me there's going to be a culture of having fans in the stands, and of course having Notre Dame come here next year, and that schedule is going to create some interest from the season ticket standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, they're just across the country. I think you just have a strong appetite for college football,
Yeah,
no matter where you're at. I mean, and maybe this is going to be the norm now for Purdue, that you can kind of battle through a 4-8 season, but still get close to sellouts as you get to November, even though you're eliminated from bowls. And on the surface, there's not a lot to play for, but there still seems to be a healthy appetite for, being at the stadium, having that experience. And I know Purdue has done some different things to create different experiences for people, because, that's kind of what it's become in sports. It's no longer just go watch the game and leave. You gotta get yourself involved in some sort of experience and things like that. But however you get them in the stands, now you got to keep them. And this, how Purdue finished the season probably helps the ticketing campaign and other things like that as you move into the off season, because Purdue, you're going to get new opponents in Ross-Ade Stadium over time. You're going to get, Oregon's been here before, but they haven't been here since 08.
Yep.
I mean, Washington's going to come here for the first time probably in 20 or 25 years. UCLA and USC, they've been here before, but none of us remember it. So it's you're going to get some new opponents. You're going to get maybe some regular traditional Big Ten powers on a regular basis. You don't have to wait 10 years to see a Michigan or Ohio State. So, I think there's a strong appetite for people to watch college football. And, right now I don't see that slowing down in a way, because, you look at all Purdue's games this year, for the most part, they've been competitive. They've been in it.
Yep.
And, I think people are just I think they're eager to support something like this and maybe watch it build and see where it goes.
Indiana State, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Oregon, Penn State, and all coming to Ross-Ade Stadium next year, in addition to Northwestern. So that puts a lot on it in terms of the opportunity to have some marquee games here in this facility. All right, Tom, I'll let you put the wrap on this. Give us some wisdom here in this final segment. You're shaking your head. You're wisdomed out by this point, but no, bucket wins are important to Purdue fans. It's hard to minimize that, and really a classic, fun football game to watch. I mean, I know Ohio State and Michigan was coming down the stretch, and it was exciting, but this was a fun game to watch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it really was. Probably I think the most fun game of the year, to watch and consume and enjoy. Just all the fits and starts, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs for each team. Got off to a little bit of a comical start with the missed field goal, the drop passes, overthrown guys as well. But it all sorted out to be a real fun game to watch, and a good way for fans to be able to end the year with a win, and an exciting win over your rival, 35-31. I think, like we said earlier, there's a reason for optimism when you look at Hudson Card coming back and some of the playmakers that they've gotten, Deion Burks as well. We all know there's questions to be answered still as well, but and who's exactly going to be on that roster, right?
Yeah, that'll be it.
We're watching guys like Nick Scorton, Kydron Jenkins, Gus Hartwig, Deion Burks. I mean, these guys are probably going to have options. And will they remain in West Lafayette or not? It's going to be interesting to see. It's a whole brave new world in college football. And Ryan Walters understands that more so than any coach out there, I think. He's a young guy. He gets it. And I got the sense he's going to do all he can to make sure he can procure the best talent that he can. So that's going to be the storyline, obviously, to watch here moving forward.
Yeah, all right. It'll be head on a swivel time for Tom and covering all this down the road here as we inch towards National Signing Day, but also obviously the transfer portal opening up as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate it. It wasn't 12 o'clock or 12:30 in the morning, so that's a good thing from today. There's a little bit of light left there in Ross-Ade Stadium as we leave. And Carmen and I will have our walk, and he'll tell me something on this walkout that I won't forget. It's always that way. I appreciate that as well. So, guys, thanks again so much. Thanks to the Union Club Hotel, the 811 Bistro, Boiler Up Bar, and we appreciate their sponsorship as well. There'll be a lot more on this video thing we keep doing. Brian Newbert and company will be talking Purdue basketball next week, and the Boilermakers will be number one for the third year in a row in basketball. That's a big deal as well. So have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. If you're traveling tomorrow, which many of you will, be safe out there, and we'll see you down the road in our next Saturday simulcast. Take care, everybody.